nukes under pressure. The more powerful a government is, the more likely it is to engage in a war and conquest. See U.S. involvement in Ukraine and all the wars it has been involved in directly or indirectly. In 2014, Ukraine, the U.S. led a coup that ousted a democratically elected president, Viktor Yanukovych. In November 2013, Yanukovych rejected a major economic deal being negotiated with the EU and decided to accept a Russian counteroffer of $15 billion. This decision led to anti-government protests and that escalated over the next 3 months. Rather than wait for the next election, Yanukovych fled to Russia on February 22, 2014. The new government in Kiev was pro-Western and anti-Russian to the bone and contained 4 high-ranking members who could legitimately be called neo-fascists. It was clear that Washington supported the coup. The U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland and Republican Senator John McCain participated in anti-government protests. As a leaked phone recording revealed, Victoria Nuland had supported regime change and wanted Ukrainian politician Arseniy Yatsenyuk to become prime minister in the new government, which he did. In 2019, comedian and moderate actor Volodymyr Zelensky was elected president with 73.23% of the vote. Of course, he advocated no war and peace and all that. Now, despite the media's love affair with Zelensky, who was portrayed as something akin to Winston Churchill and Mother Teresa reincarnated by the pro-Western media, Ukraine's government remains one of the most corrupt on the planet. Quote, in January 2022, the U.S. Department of Justice filed a forfeiture suit, the fourth against it, which alleges that Kolomoisky and Gennady Bogolyubov, owners of Privat Bank, one of the largest banks in Ukraine, embezzled and defrauded the bank of $6 billion, which was lost. The two allegedly obtained fraudulent loans and lines of credit from 2008 to 2016 and laundered portions of their criminal proceeds using a series of shell company bank accounts, primarily at the Cyprus bank of Privat Bank, before transferring the funds to the U.S., where they continued to launder illegally through an associate who operated from offices in Miami, Florida. Some of the stolen money came from IMF loans made to the Ukrainian government after the Maidan coup of 2014, which were paid by the National Bank of Ukraine to Privat Bank. Jeremy Kuzmarov, MR Online reports. But the power-hungry U.S. regime will tolerate a corrupt Ukrainian regime as long as it helps Ukraine join NATO and places U.S. nuclear missiles on Russia's border. As we know, Ukraine has a border with Russia. But Russia does not like that idea, so President Putin invaded Ukraine a year ago to stop it. The U.S. saw this as a great opportunity to accuse Russia of what was clearly an act of war and rush to the defense of innocent Ukraine. With massive citizen taxpayer funding and military support, all this is known. It's also known to the intelligentsia that the U.S. has a history of deceiving the country into war. And when you are a rich and powerful government, war can be a very profitable business, for some at least. It's rarely so for those who do the actual fighting, or for taxpayers not connected to the U.S. war industry. But the corrupt media ensures that such issues get no or little exposure. People are starting to wake up to the lies and censorship surrounding various cures. And so why should they believe that government statement, including those about Ukraine and its enemies? Because Ukraine has not touched them like COVID. Most people cannot find Ukraine on the map. And that helps sustain the media campaign. So we hear that Russia is so evil that it probably blew up its own Nord Stream 2 pipeline, but was built to deliver more gas to Germany and the rest of Europe. The Biden team said a report by Seymour Hersh blaming the U.S. for sabotage was completely false and a figment of imagination, despite Biden's promise that the U.S. would put an end to the Nord Stream pipeline. But it was not just Biden's promise. U.S. commentators, including former President Trump, have long opposed the pipeline because it would make Germany hostage to Russia. As Matt Taibbi wrote a month after the Nord Stream explosions, American officials of both parties have for years used harsh language to condemn, flatter, and threaten Europeans. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee held hearings in 2017 led by Republican Ron Johnson, ranking member Chris Murphy of Connecticut, threatening Europe with even blowing up the pipeline and going nuclear. Throughout the year-long war in Ukraine, we've repeatedly heard speculation that the conflict could escalate into a nuclear conflict. Don't worry, we're told, even if Putin decided to launch nukes, they would likely be tactical, merely discreet, not the big ones that turn cities into moonscapes and their population to dust. However, today's tactical weapons are not exactly toys. According to Dr. Rod Thornton, a security expert at King's College London, the largest tactical weapons can be as large as 100 kilotons. 1 kiloton equals 1,000 tons of TNT. The bomb the U.S. dropped on Hiroshima was only 15 kilotons. In addition, last May, Russian state television showed a simulation of a nuclear attack on the UK and Ireland using a Poseidon nuclear-powered underwater drone that would cause a tsunami that would submerge the British Isles in the depths of the sea and would turn them into a radioactive desert. On many fronts, Putin is under pressure. The more desperate Putin becomes, the more they push him, the more likely a nuclear weapon will be used. He brought up Snake Island, a Black Sea outpost seized by Russia early in the war that has since been recaptured and became a symbol of Ukrainian resistance as a target Putin could have in mind. In a feeble attempt to threaten Putin, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg warned of quote-unquote severe consequences if Russia uses nuclear weapons in Ukraine, echoing private warnings of catastrophic consequences from Washington. Adding an exclamation mark to the matter, Putin said he was not bluffing. Conclusion: absent any discussion that the U.S. strikes first and then blames Putin. Given the aggressiveness of U.S. so far and its belief that it would emerge victorious in a nuclear war, plus Biden's determination to support Ukraine, quote, as long as necessary and to the last Ukrainian, end quote, such a scenario is more than likely. And what can stop a tactical nuclear war from escalating into a full-blown ICBM exchange? Nothing, of course. Certainly not in the mindset of U.S. deep state leaders. It would be the extensions of the Nord Stream and with the addition of global annihilation, and the lives of all governments would end finally. And this is from George Ford Smith, Terra Papers. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.